Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Barrett, accredited practicing dietitian and one of the directors of Diet Solutions in Melbourne. We put together an online program for people who suffer from irritable bowel syndrome. Irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, is a common gastrointestinal condition affecting 15 to 20% of the population. It affects more women than men across a wide range of age groups. The most common symptoms of IBS include abdominal pain and cramps, bloating, excessive wind and altered bowel habit. You may have diarrhea or constipation or alternate between the two. You can experience any one of these symptoms or more. Symptoms are also transient. You can go through periods where your IBS is a major problem impacting on many areas of your life, and at other times your symptoms can barely be noticeable. A major consideration when deciding if you have IBS is that the same symptoms can occur in a variety of other conditions. It is therefore vital that you have an assessment with a doctor to ensure that you've had appropriate investigations to rule out other more complex conditions. If you plan to make changes to your diet in order to control your symptoms, please don't until you've had medical assessment. Changes to your diet and improvement in symptoms can then mask certain conditions and make diagnosis really difficult. So, how do we diagnose IBS? IBS is diagnosed through a series of questions and investigations by your GP or gastroenterologist. The type of symptoms you experience, their frequency and severity, and your family history will help define what's going on. They may conduct a series of blood tests and, if required, may follow through with a colonoscopy and/or a gastroscopy to rule out other similar conditions. The cause of IBS is unclear. Factors thought to play a key role are the gut microbiota, being the type, number and variety of bacteria in your intestines, and their connection with the brain-gut axis, which is the connection between the gut and the brain, whereby stress or anxiety can trigger symptoms in the gut. The symptoms of IBS can be triggered by a number of other factors. Intense or excessive exercise can speed up the gut and contribute to symptoms. Certain medications can alter intestinal movement and function, and hormonal changes can even have an influence. Food habits, meal patterns can impact digestion and the function of the gut if they are off balance. Inadequate fibre intake or consumption of fatty foods or excess alcohol or caffeine can also upset the gut. If any of these dietary factors are potential contributors to your IBS symptoms, we need to address this first and foremost. In many cases, improved general nutrition, meal pattern, and nutrient-dense food choices can provide adequate relief. If symptoms continue despite good eating habits, food intolerance may be a trigger for your symptoms. You may need to trial the low FODMAP diet under dietitian guidance. Research trials have shown that being educated and guided by a dietitian on the low FODMAP diet provides better outcomes. There are also other diets that may assist food intolerance related IBS that your dietitian can consider if you fail to receive significant benefit from a low FODMAP diet trial. In order to further understand your gastrointestinal symptoms, it's really important to understand what normal digestion is. The process of digestion begins before our first mouthful. The smell or even the thought of food stimulates the production of saliva, which helps us chew and swallow our food. Saliva also contains an enzyme called amylase, which starts to break down carbohydrates within our food. The food then enters the esophagus, where muscles contract to move the food down to the stomach. As the food hits the stomach acid is produced, which helps to break the food down into smaller pieces. Muscles in the lower part of the stomach then move the thick fluid through to the small intestine. The stomach also releases gastrin, or hormone, which stimulates the muscles in the small and large intestine to move and process contents. The small intestine is responsible for the digestion and absorption of protein, carbohydrate and fats, and the release of nutrients from food, which is then sent through the body via the bloodstream. Any waste products from digestion are then sent through to the large intestine, where it is collected and formed into feces. The large intestine absorbs excess water, processes undigested fibres, and stores the waste until it is ready to clear as feces. It is really normal to experience gastrointestinal discomfort. Every single one of us would experience some sort of abdominal cramp or change in our bowel habit from time to time. It might be related to something we've eaten, it might be related to stress, but it doesn't really become IBS until it becomes a long-term chronic condition. It is, however, really important to remember that it is normal to experience some gastrointestinal upset. So when you are working on managing your IBS, if you still have the odd day where it's not perfect, that's normal, that's okay. We actually all produce gas. Gas is actually part of normal healthy digestion. Every time we consume foods that have really great fibres, complex grains contain a lot of healthy ingredients, and some of those are indigestible fibres that get fermented in our gut. So we actually have fermentation going on in every single person. We have gas produced in the gut, and that gas, in the vast majority of cases, is actually a sign of healthy digestion. Gas is good. Gas is not something that you need to think, oh no, that means I've eaten the wrong thing. If you don't have any levels of gas, then you're probably not eating enough grains and fibre in your diet. It's actually a very important part of digestion. Gas is produced when your intestinal bacteria ferment undigested carbohydrates in the large or sometimes small intestine. Fermentation releases gas, usually hydrogen, carbon dioxide or methane, and also release short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate, which are compounds that are highly important in gut health. Butyrate, for example, has been shown to be protective against colon cancer. So without fermentation and gas, there would be no short-chain fatty acids, and that's not a good thing. Every person has experienced some level of IBS symptoms. A few days of eating heavy, rich food can impact on gut motility. This can result in bloating and abdominal discomfort and a change in diarrhea or constipation. This is fine. No long-term dietary restrictions or modifications are necessary, but it's a reminder that moderation is the key, and it might make us more aware so that we reduce the quantity and richness of our food choices next time. Stool form and bowel frequency are another area where the level of what is normal is confusing. The Bristol stool chart has been put together to help label stool form for research purposes. Type 4 is the ideal stool form, but anywhere from type 3 to 5 is considered within the normal range. Type 1 and 2 stool form indicates constipation type stools, whereas type 6 and 7 indicates diarrhea. But just one bowel action that is loose or too firm does not indicate diarrhea or constipation. Diarrhea is actually defined as type 6 or 7 stools greater than 3 times a day. Constipation is a term used quite broadly and can include type 1 or 2 stool form, bowel movements less than every 3 days, or feeling incomplete evacuation, where you never feel like you've actually emptied properly. Constipation can even just be a lack of bowel movement despite the urge to go. When you experience these symptoms more often and they start to impact on your life, that is when IBS should be considered. An assessment with your doctor is required to confirm. If you have been diagnosed with IBS, you will know that your symptoms vary in type, intensity, duration and frequency, which makes it a difficult condition to predict and therefore live with. What is really important to remember is that, remember I said, gas is good. Don't look at low levels of gas-related symptoms as a bad thing. Remember, with that gas comes short-chain fatty acid production and benefits to gut health. If you can start to look at the gas in a more positive light, you may worry about it less, which in turn may improve your overall symptoms. You've then made a positive change to the effect of the brain-gut axis on your symptoms. To those who experience IBS, it is almost always obvious that diet plays a key role in symptoms. Symptoms are often exacerbated after you eat, which in itself is a complicated message, as more often than not, eating triggers movement of previous meals through the bowel. It is usually something you ate much earlier in the day or even the previous evening that causes your symptoms, rather than what you have eaten when your symptoms hit. As a result, trying to pinpoint the culprit food is near impossible, additionally considering our meals are complex mixtures of foods. The first thing to consider is the nutritional content of your usual diet. If you think there is much work to be done in improving food behaviour, eating pattern and nutritional food choices, then you may have significant relief of symptoms by adopting some healthy eating principles.
Our team of experienced dietitians at Diet Solutions may encourage this as a first step to improving your symptoms.
If, however, you feel that your diet has been relatively well managed, but you have some food intolerances, 75% of patients with IBS do well by reducing fermentable carbohydrates in their diet. This is called a low FODMAP diet. This again is vital that it's done under dietitian guidance. It is not a strict long-term diet. It is something tried relatively strictly, very short-term to improve symptoms, with regulated challenges and testing of tolerance to gradually form a long-term, suitable, nutritionally adequate diet.
Our Diet Solutions team are experts in the low FODMAP diet. Many members of our team over the past decade have been heavily involved in FODMAP-related research, learning the latest in this ever-changing space. Most of you watching this video have purchased our online IBS program. However, if you'd like additional advice on diet for IBS, please contact our fantastic administration team via telephone or email. If you've also changed your mind and feel that you may well benefit more from one-on-one personalised dietary advice from one of our specialist dietitians, please let our administration team know and they can give you a credit from the price of this course toward an individual appointment.